Welcome everyone. Today I'm going to talk about how you can deploy web application in Azure Kubernetes Services or AKS. AKS. Now we'll show things step by step, which you can apply for any kind of web services, web-based application, and then put them into Kubernetes services. So few things we might need while we work on that solution. So what do we need here? So let's say we add a list here and we need AKS. Then we need an app to deploy, and we need what else? Some magic, right? To do that. So let's see how we can do that. So imagine that we start from here and then we log into Azure, and then we create AKS. So let's see how that experience looks like first. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to use my Azure subscription. So let me show you that subscription here. So right now, this is the setup resource groups here. So I'll probably create a resource group and then start using from here. What I can do, probably I prefer that most, is that I will use this built-in command prompt for Azure, so which is Azure's bash shell in browser, so that you don't need to really install anything in your local machine, and all those tools you use are all up to date, so you don't need to really worry about the version differences, the older version versus new version, and all these things. And as you all know that if you go to shell.azure.com and then use the same credential, you can go and have this in your browser and then start working on it. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to first create a group. So I'll say group create, but let me just do one thing because I need the name of the group often. So I'll say RGAKS. That's the name of the group. And then name of the virtual machine, the AKS is that WGAKS demo. Let's put it that way. Okay, so these are the variables I need. Now, what I can do, I can say group create, and then I give the name with a variable name that is RG. That's what I defined earlier. And then I say that location East US. So it goes ahead and creates the resource group in East US, and you can see it's pretty fast and it doesn't require a lot of time to create. Now what I need to do is that I need to create an AKS, right? So to do that, what I probably be doing, so let me try to increase the font size. Okay, so what I need to do is that I need to say AZ, and then I say AKS create, and I give a name of the AKS cluster, which you know that I created a variable called N, and in the group RG, very fine. And then I will create two nodes. So I'll say node dash count equals to 2. And then I'm gonna say that I want to enable the add-on dashboard. So we'll talk about it. So the dashboard is say cube dash dashboard. That's an add-on. And then I say that generate SSH key. Okay. So if I hit that, this is gonna go ahead and start building the AKS cluster. So it will go through a couple of steps. It will go through the steps like creating the service principal, and then use that service principal to have those virtual machines created. So it will have two node cluster, but it will also have a controller node which we will not have access to, or neither we are charged for that, but things will be set up for us, which will take some time. So till the time, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and pause this and come back once this is over. Now you can see that this is kind of done, right? So you have all the necessary option, which is a lot of information which we are not interested. So I'll just clean this up and I will go ahead and initiate the connection option. So once your Kubernetes cluster is sort of ready, what you first need to do is that you need to bring in the config details back into the system. So I'll use something called kubectl. That's the command line tool, which is already there, available with this bash script. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to, instead of typing again and again, I'm going to create an extension, sorry, alias. So if I say k get all, it'll give me all the things which is there. But you see that there is an error, because the reason why this error is there, I did not connect to the right AKS cluster. How do I connect to the right AKS cluster? Is by bringing that credential into my local machine, local folder, right? So if I say AZAKS and I say get credentials, and then I say group rg name in. Okay, so that's why I sort of created this group variable and name variable, because I need them oftentimes. Now once this is done, if I now go back and run the previous command, it'll show you what all objects I have already in my machine. So it only has a default Kubernetes service object. None of the other things are available. I can pretty much check what all nodes available. So I can say k get nodes. So it'll tell me the list of nodes available. So you can see that I asked for two nodes. So two node pool available. So these are all virtual machine scale sets which are being used. And you can see the Kubernetes version, which is v1.18.14, right? That's the version. If you want kind of latest one, you can specify explicitly while creating the Kubernetes thing. So we are pretty okay at this point in time. So just to check whether things are working fine, what I can say, I say ka run busy image busy box restart never. And then if it does create, and then say okay, get pods, you get to see the busy box is kind of completed, which means that things are working okay at this point in time. What I now need is that I now need to create some application, uh, and then see things are working. But before that, what I need to see also, I need to see whether my dashboard is working fine or not. To check that whether dashboard is working fine, whether I can view things or not, is that I can use something like AZ, AKS, browse, and then I say group name is RG. um, the name of the cluster is the name of the cluster. Okay, if I do that, what happens? It gives me an URL, right? And if I click on that URL, right, it automatically tries to open in the browser, and you should be able to see something. There could be an error. If there is an error, we'll fix it. So it says that you download that, you use the kube config to work on it. Now to work on the kube config, so what I need is that I need to bring that into my local machine as well. So what I'm going to do is that um, I will use this get credential in my local machine. So let me bring another window, and then I say that use this. So if I do that, what happens is that it is gonna go ahead and get me the credentials. So let me say RGAKS, and it brings that credential into my local machine. So I think we are doing something wrong. So what is the resource group here I'm using is sort of like say Control C. I say equal RG, RGAKS. That's the right one. And I let me just copy the thing over here from here, where I just kind of have taken. Okay, so let me see the name and the RGAKS, and the name is WJKS demo. Okay, so these are the two things. So let me do one thing. Let me go back into this and I say RGAKS, and then I gave a name WGAKS demo. Okay, so and then I run this command again, which will then get me the credential. So I was working earlier with a different name, hence it did not pick up the right one. Now once it is able to download the credential into my local machine, it will show you the path, and I'll copy that to the local directory. So I'll show you the path here, right? Once this is kind of done. So it's just taking a bit longer, which is quite unexpected, right? However, what I can do, I can just go ahead and rerun this browser thing. So I can just say that, hey, you know what? I want to do this browse again, which basically gonna kickstart another session for the browser. And then once this is copied, you can see that it is saying that it is copied. What I'm going to do, I'm going to open it up in my local folder, right? So you can see that right now I'm in the same location. So if I just make sure that I'm in the same location, so config is the name of the file. So I go here in this folder, I copy this, and I copy it to the home directory of my WSL. That's Windows Subsystem for Linux. And then it is mapped to the folder here in this WSL, which means that I can just go and find the Q folder and paste it over here, which will basically replace the file, and I should be able to now connect to the Kubernetes cluster, which is in Azure. So if I use k get all, this should show me the busy box, which is now stopped from, right? And it goes there, fetches the information, and gets me all those things. So if everything's fine, it should be able to now connect to the machine. So it is now working fine, right? So you can see that what I now can do in the Kubernetes dashboard, I can go to the kube config and then point to the folder where this file got downloaded, right? So I can just say, this is the folder and this is the file, and then it says sign in. If there is an error, we will fix that error. So we'll see if there it says nothing to display, which kind of is unusual because there is at least a service available, which is default service, and the busy box is also available. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go ahead and then create some roles here. So what this is basically doing, it's creating a cluster binding role in the Kubernetes dashboard and then giving some responsibilities over here. So it is kind of done. Now I just kind of try to refresh this and it should now pick up from there. If it is not, then I will just rerun the whole thing so that the cache and everything gets cleared for me, right? So I'll do sign out and I'll do sign in. I'll use the same config file and I pick up the config file from here and do a sign in. and it should now reflect the Kubernetes dashboard. Now you can see that the dashboard shows up all my thing, right? So I basically have got one service, one BusyBox pod, which I'm not interested in, so I'll just delete it. I can do the delete operation from the dashboard itself. Or else what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go ahead. It still went back into the previous state. I just want this monitoring thing to be running perfectly fine because I'll be executing some commands which immediately will show up in this window that something is happening at this point. So let me do that same thing. Sign out, sign in, copy the path of the file, and push it again as a sign in instruction, which basically will pick up the necessary thing. So you can see that now you have the default token, blah, blah, blah. All these things are fine at this point in time. So let's just work on command prompt. So let's just see if I say Control C and then I clear this up. What I wanted to do is that I wanted to run this side by side. Okay, so I just have this and I have this running. Okay, so what happens when you have these two side by side thing running? I can create one thing here and then it can reflect me. So if I say k get pods and then I say watch mode, this basically keeps watching what are the pods available. Right now there is no pods available, so nothing will be displayed. So if I say k run busy image busy box, and then I just leave it like that, it'll start creating the busy box and you can see immediately it reflects. So this is a live sort of like thing which basically works against the existing cluster. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just go ahead and create a few additional pods. But before that, let me delete that pod. So I k delete pod busy, and this that will delete the pod. You can see that it's getting terminated, and once this is terminated, it should actually be removing things. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the Nginx, which is sort of like a web-based pod, so web-based container in my pod creation. So let me do that. So I'll say k create deploy. This time I will not create pod directly. I will create deploy because that will handle properly my deployment. So I'll say deploy Nginx. That's a name, and then image Nginx, and then replicas 2, and then I should be fine. So image equals Nginx, not dash. So that will basically create a couple of pods. In fact, two of them, right? You can see that there are two pods additionally got added and then getting created, and then their status is running because the entry point is the Nginx homepage, and it will always be up and running. It will not get let's say completed mode. So that's all fine, which is working as expected. Now what I wanted to do, I wanted to create a service which basically will expose this outside of the world. And how do I define that service? Is that by creating a service and against this deployment. So I can say that k expose deploy, that's a deployment, and the name of the deployment is Nginx. And I'll say port equals to 80. I will expose the port 80. Target port is 80. I don't have to explicitly mention that. Or else I can also explicitly say type equals to load balancer. If I do not explicitly mention type, it becomes cluster IP, and which does not have, let's say, a public IP address. Okay. So if I go ahead and create that load balancer, nothing changes. It basically adds a service into that. So let me just show you how it looks like in the Nginx scenario, the Kubernetes scenario. So I'll say k get all, and it shows all the things which basically pod, deployment, services, etc. And if you happen to notice the services, now I expand the size, you have an external IP address in the service. So if I pick that external IP address up and put it in the browser, it will start showing me the thing, right? So you can see that if I go ahead and run this IP address, let me try running that. Do I need to explicitly say HTTP? Let's do that. So you can see that there are two replica sets, deployment, they're up and running, and this is the IP address, and it uses 483.04. Okay, let me see if that is that. Yeah, so it is now, you can see that it is now showing up here, the welcome nginx coming from that. Everything is fine. Just wanted to show you this complete thing. Let me run that AZ browse this one again, just to make sure that I have a dashboard, nice looking dashboard available so that I can visually experience what exactly happening over here, right? So once this dashboard is up and running, then I will try to modify some of the stuff, right? And then I'll show you what experience it looks like. Now you can see the dashboard popped up, right? There's a deployment, there's a pod, there's a replica set, there is also a service which is Nginx, and that's the IP address which it is using, all fine. Right now, I have only two pods because I have mentioned that I need the replica set equals to 2, right? Let me just modify that experience. So if I just open this thing on top of this window, right, and just try to reduce as much as possible, what happens when you say that, hey, you know what? I want to edit the deployment, which is name Nginx. If you do that, and it shows you things in the editor. So replica, you have this, and then you change the replica set to 21. Okay, let's be ambitious about it. And then what happens immediately, the deployment kickstarts if everything is fine, right? And you will see in the dashboard there are 21 pods which got created and up and running, right? So fast. That's a rolling update, which means any changes you are making, right, it will do those things. I can even reduce this size to, let's say now it was earlier 2, we made it 21, and then say replica, and I say that, hey, you know what, let's not do too much, so just make 4, and this then it will immediately reduce it to 4, and I will see the dashboard is kind of reflecting things over here. So I'll just do a relogin, and just to make sure that things are getting properly replicated over here, right? So let me quickly run this, sign in, keep running, and you will see that there will be only 4 replicas working at this point in time, right? Because I have changed it. So that's the kind of experience which you can imagine, right? So you kind of try to delete one. Let's say I use this interface to delete this one, and then I say delete. It's equal to saying delete pod and the pod name, and it will be terminated. Not only that, as soon as it is terminated, because deployment ensures the number of replicas, so it will immediately spin up a new replica. So you can see that it will always be number 4 active pods. The moment you delete one, it not only deletes that one, but creates a new separate new one. So I kind of have that four replicas. So I say delete, and I click on delete for 94JPX. You will find that 94JPX is gonna go ahead and terminate, and then it will have at least the number 4. That's the minimum number, right? So you can increase the capacity, you can decrease them, and do all sort of things. But Kubernetes, as its characteristic says, will ensure that your deployment is always healthy, auto heal things, right? Even if you explicitly delete, it will spin up. So let's just do another way of deletion, right? So if you say that, and then I open this small black window on top of it, and I say k delete pod, and then give the pod name, it's going to go ahead and terminate. You'll see behind the scene, behind this screen, the dashboard will show you that one of the pods is deleting, right? It will show you that it's terminating, right? And then another will immediately be created, right? So that's the kind of experience which you typically get in the Kubernetes world. So with this, I wanted to stop, and thanks for joining this conversation. Hope you have enjoyed it and have a great day.